Guten Tag. Today we're going to talk about the imperative form or the command form in German. Imperativ oder Befehlsform auf Deutsch. There are only 4 command forms that you can actually use in German because there are only 4 ways that you can actually command people to do something, and that's when you're talking directly to them. The 4 forms that you can use when talking directly to someone would be du, used with singular individuals, that you would use their first name, you're familiar with them, generally family members and friends. Ihr, if you have more than one person that you would use du with, you're going to use ihr. Wir, if it's used with you and at least one other person. And Sie, for the formal version, for either singular or plural, for people that you address with Mr. or Mrs. or something like that. We're going to start today with the du form. In order to make the du form, we're going to start by writing a normal German statement or question, doesn't matter if it's a statement or question, using the du form that could be used in the command form. The example that we'll be using today for all of these would be Du gehst nach Hause. You go home, or you are going home. You could change this to a question and it really wouldn't make any difference. It would be Gehst du nach Hause? Are you going home? That's step 1. Step 2 is to make like a broom and brush off the dust, or take out the du and the st out of the sentence. So in our first example we have Du gehst nach Hause. In step 2 we end up with Geh nach Hause. The third step is relatively simple. All you have to do is support the German stereotype, that is, that Germans always yell and are angry all the time, and add an exclamation mark to the end to punctuate that you have made a command. So your original sentence of Du gehst nach Hause changes over to Geh nach Hause. There are a few things to be aware of when you're using the du form as a command. First of all, the stem changing verbs that we talked about earlier. The A to A umlaut verbs do not take the stem change. The E to I and E to IE, however, do take the stem change. Some examples of using the du form with a stem changing verb would be fahren changes to fahr schneller, for drive quicker. You don't have the umlaut like you normally would for the du form, as the du form of fahren is fährst, but you take off the umlaut in the command. Lesen, however, and essen both take a stem change for an IE or just an I, and they take the stem change. Lies bitte vor and iss langsam. Please read aloud and eat slowly. Some more weird things that happen with the du form. You would have to add an E to the end of a verb that ends with a D, a T, IG, or an M or an N when those two letters are preceded by another consonant. To illustrate that point, here are some examples of verbs that would require the extra E. Reden with the stem would just be R-E-D. That stem ends with a D, so you have to add the extra E. Rede nicht so schnell. Don't talk so quickly. Arbeite nicht so viel. Arbeiten's stem also ends with a T, and therefore needs the extra E. Atme langsam wieder aus, which is breathe slowly out again. Atme ends with an M for the stem, but because of the T directly before that, you have to add the extra E. Erledige das is to take care of that. And again, that one ends with the IG and therefore falls into the category that would require the extra E. Öffne die Tür is also in that category because the N is preceded by a consonant. The du form is also unique in the fact that you can use an extra E on parts that do not take that D, T, IG, or M/N rule. However, it's not always required. The only forms that are actually required to have the E would be D, T, IG, or MN preceded by another consonant. Those verbs require the extra E, whereas the other forms, you can throw in the extra E if you so desire, but it's not necessarily required. Here are a few more examples of the du form. Fahr nach Hause, drive home. You can add an E there if you would like, but it's not required. Fahre nach Hause would be another form of it. Komm her, come here. Or komme her if you want to add the extra E. Lies bitte vor, read aloud please. This one you're more than likely not going to use the extra E because lies bitte vor already has an E sound in it, and it's just awkward to say liese bitte vor. Pass bitte auf is please pay attention, and tu das nicht is don't do that. You can also say tue das nicht if you want to add the extra E. The ihr form of the command form is going to be used with people that you would normally address as du, but there's more than one of them in the conversation. The first step in writing one of these is to write a normal German statement or a question using ihr that could be changed into the command form. For consistency purposes, we're going to use Geht ihr nach Hause, same as we did before, but now in the ihr form. Are you going home? Step 2 in making the ihr form is to make like Van Gogh and drop the ear. If you don't know, Van Gogh cut off his ear, so that kind of helps you to remember which one to do in this instance. So drop the ear like Van Gogh. The example then becomes Geht nach Hause. And as with the other forms, the last step is to add the exclamation mark at the end to support the German stereotype of yelling and screaming all the time. Geht ihr nach Hause changes to Geht nach Hause, go home. When you're making the ihr form, you don't have to worry about the irregular verbs, as the ihr form wasn't irregular in those forms anyway. For instance, fahren doesn't have a stem change in the ihr form, so there's no point in worrying about whether or not something has a stem change for the ihr form with the command. Some examples of the ihr form command would be Fahrt nach Hause. Oh, stop giggling, it's not that funny. Kommt her. Come here. Lest bitte vor. Read aloud, please. Passt bitte auf. Pay attention. Tut das nicht. Don't do that. The Z form would be used whenever you're commanding someone that you would address with Mr. or Mrs. or Herr or Frau. You can also use this with professors and strangers. So, the first step in writing this would be to write a question using Z. I say write a question. It's easy to do if you write a statement as well, but it's easier if you start by writing a question. If you write a statement, you just have to switch the word order later so that it's in question format. The example, for consistency purposes, is Gehen Sie nach Hause? Are you going home? The second step in the Z form is the same as it was for the last forms of the other ones, which is to add an exclamation mark, so it would become Gehen Sie nach Hause rather than Gehen Sie nach Hause. The only difference is the punctuation. Some examples of the Z form would be Fahren Sie nach Hause, drive home. Kommen Sie her, come here. Lesen Sie bitte vor, read aloud please. Passen Sie bitte auf, pay attention please. Tun Sie das nicht, don't do that. Some people think that using the Vir form to make a command is actually a little counterintuitive, but we actually do have this in English as well. We always use let's, as in let's go to the movies, or in the example that we're about to use, let's go home. You start out by writing a question using Vir. The same with the Z form. You can do it with a statement if you would so desire, but again you're going to have to change the word order. So it's easier to start out by writing a question. Gehen wir nach Hause is are we going home? The last step is again to change your punctuation from a question mark to an exclamation mark. In this case we have Gehen wir nach Hause to Gehen wir nach Hause. The only difference in the two is the punctuation. Some examples of the Vir form command would be Fahren wir nach Hause. Let's drive home. Lesen wir bitte vor. Let's read aloud. Passen wir bitte auf. Let's pay attention. Tun wir das nicht. Let's not do that. Sein is one of the most complicated verbs in the German language. It's weird in the present tense, and it's weird in the past tense. And why wouldn't it be weird in the command form? So with sein, you have to just memorize the different forms again. The du form changes to sei, as in sei nett, be nice. The ihr form actually doesn't change any and just stays as seid, as in seid nett. The Z form and the Vir form both end up being seien. So we say seien Sie nett, as in be nice, and seien wir nett, let's be nice. And now for a little bit of practice. Change the following to a command. Findest du deine Schuhe? Are you finding your shoes? In this sentence, we just drop the du and the st to make the command. So we end up with Finde deine Schuhe, find your shoes. Don't forget that in order to make the command form with du, you just brush the dust off. Number 2. Gebt ihr eurem Vater ein Geschenk? Are you giving your father a gift? In this case, in order to change this question into a command, we just take out the ear like Van Gogh. Gebt eurem Vater ein Geschenk. Give your father a gift. For number 3, rufen Sie Ihren Eltern an? Are you calling your parents? In order to change this one into a command, all you have to do is change the punctuation. When you change the punctuation, your inflection in your voice changes as well. You go from the question, rufen Sie Ihren Eltern an, to rufen Sie Ihren Eltern an. See the difference? Number 4, wir bringen Essen mit. We are bringing food along. In this one, we have to not only change the punctuation to an exclamation mark, but also change the word order so that it's in question format, or command format. Bringen wir Essen mit, which is, let's bring food along. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful, and in the comments below you can write commands for what you think that I should do in the future. Don't forget to check out the rest of my channel and subscribe. Thank you.